Always choose a reference song when you're mixing your projects. Have reference tracks inside your project. Keep a reference track even for composing. Now, these are things that you have heard multiple times through many producers on YouTube or from your friends as well. But do you really know how to choose a reference song for your project? What do you have to look for when you're choosing a reference song? We're going to learn at how to choose a reference song and the need to choose a reference song for your project. I'm Florina Jean, otherwise known as Flow of Music, and I put out a lot of videos on music production and business in general. So if you like that, please do subscribe. So let's get started. To answer the question of why you need a reference track. Now, when you begin a project, either it's for somebody else or it's for your own songs, you will have to look up to some song, right? Like you will probably do a ballet kind of song and you will have an artist in mind or a song popping up in your mind, and naturally your work will want to resemble that song. It's basically a song that has already been produced by somebody much bigger than you, maybe a big name artist, which is already on YouTube and having quite a lot of views. So you choose that song and you're wanting your song also to come up to that level. So just for a comparison between the composition, the mixing part and the mastering part, you need to choose a reference song. Without that, you might find that your song doesn't really head towards any direction. Yes, you might do the composition part well or the mixing or the mastering part well. But then when you have a reference song and when you listen to that once and then come back to your mixing, then only you will realize the differences in the frequencies that they have and the frequencies that you have. So it's basically because you need a song to look up to and your song is heading towards that song in terms of production and in terms of post-production. Now, coming to the point on the different things you need to keep in mind when you're selecting a reference song. The most basic thing is that the reference song should lie in the same genre as your song. Now, I can't decide to do a pop song and then choose a reference song that is metal. Do you think it'll work? Of course not. These two genres are entirely different and there's no reason why I'll want this song to sound like a metal song, right? So you need to choose a song that is in the same genre. Now, if you want to do a lo-fi song, you go to YouTube and just search for lo-fi beats and the numbers speak to you, right? So just listen to a couple of artists that you probably love and choose a song from that. Have a reference to it on YouTube while you are playing as well. That is one criteria that you have to keep in mind. The reference song has to lie in the same genre. Number two, which I also covered a little bit before as well, you have to desire your song to kind of sound like this reference song that you're choosing. Now, maybe it's a favorite artist and you are going through his songs, and let's continue with the lo-fi genre. So there is a lo-fi song which you probably don't like that much. It might have a lot of views and all that, but you are not connected with that song. And yet you continue to choose that song as a reference for your track. Now, the point is you need to like a song in order to keep it as a reference. Now, if you don't like it, then you will definitely not want your song to sound like that, right? So just because you like the artist and the artist has put out only this particular song under that genre doesn't mean you have to choose it, right? This is when you need to experiment other artists, and that's when your knowledge will expand, because when you discover other artists who do the genre that you are doing, your ideas will grow and your method of processing will improve a lot. So choose a song that really speaks to you and really conveys the art of music into you and that you really like. The next point is production wise, you need to look up to the reference song. Now, what do I mean by production wise? It means vocal layering, instrument composition, the type of instruments that they are using. Are they using live instruments or everything is programmed? If they are using vocals, is that just one vocal layer or 10 to 12 layers? And how they have panned that? Are there high octaves? Are there low octaves? All those things has to be kept in mind when you are doing with your song also. In case of lo-fi, the vocal layers might be different, right? They will pan it so huge so that it will sound with a lot of reverb and all that. And that has to be kept in mind when you are in the recording stage as well. So if you have a look into the production side of it, right from composition, you will get an idea on how you should approach your song. Now, if you feel like, okay, I have finished composing part, I'm just going to look at my reference song only for mixing, that isn't a bad thing, but you may try to add things, in other words, fix things when you're mixing, which actually should have been done in the composition stage itself. So you don't use mixing and mastering processes to always fix the errors that you did. You use mixing and mastering to enhance your song. I think many people just confuse mixing and mastering and always rely on mixing and mastering when they are recording itself. They say, oh, we can take care of this during the post-production process. No, try and nail it in the recording stage itself. And that is the reason why having a check in the reference song for the composition part itself is very important. So if you choose a genre and probably there's a lot of violin solos and a lot of orchestral element in the reference song, maybe you need to incorporate a couple of violin, flute, and a lot of orchestral elements into your song as well in order to make that genre shine. Before we go to the last point, and that is probably the most important point, I want to tell you something about my classes. These are one among the many topics I teach in my music production classes. So if you want to join my classes, which is a very intensive course, especially for a beginner who uses Logic Pro, I've got already multiple students all across the world coming for classes, and they are one-on-one classes. And the spots are very minimum right now. So if you want more details on how to join my classes, there is a link in my bio and I have attached my email ID. You can just send an email or fill the form that you see inside my website. So click the link in the description if you need more details. The last point in this video is using your reference song for mixing and mastering. Now, when it comes to mixing and mastering, what should you look out for in a reference song? When you upload a reference song inside Logic, you can open a simple EQ plugin within the channel strip. Now, this is especially useful at the mastering stage because at the end of all these processes that you do in your song, the amount of frequencies that are high and low can be seen by using an EQ plugin, right? So when you use an EQ plugin on a reference track, you'll definitely understand how the frequencies are distributed. So probably the high frequencies are boosted much more than how it sounds in your song. And the lows, probably they're not as boomy as it's sounding in your song. So use that EQ reference and fix your EQ. So how you do that? Either you fix it through the mixing stage. So one point, maybe if the bass is too loud, but it's not that loud in the reference song, go and fix it in the mixing area. If the overall high frequency is quite low in your song compared to the reference song, you can easily fix it in the mastering stage. You can just add an EQ in the mastering stage and slightly increase the high frequencies. That way it will get fixed. So some of these things can be fixed in the mixing window. Some of these things can be fixed in the mastering window. Not all can be fixed inside the same processing window. So if you're confused about why I'm talking about two separate windows for mixing and mastering, I always open a separate project for mixing, a separate project for mastering, and a separate project while recording as well. Not everything happens in the same project. So if you want to know why I do it like this, just comment below and I'll make a video on that. Another thing is reverb. Lots of people have a tendency to boost the reverb, especially in their vocal tracks or guitar tracks. They have a perception that more reverb means the quality is good. Actually, it's the opposite. It's going to mess up with the frequencies that you have. You're going to just clash a lot of frequencies because of the extra reverb that you added. And probably a reference song can give you a guide on the reverb that you have. So if you have a reference song with vocals in it, pay attention to the reverb given to the vocal track. Is it like really loud and really long? Is it a very thick one? Or is it very thin and popping out only in certain areas? If it is, then you need to go fix yours. You can't have the same reverb just increased in volume throughout. You need to probably automate that. Or you need to probably sidechain it. Sidechain it in a way where when the vocal doesn't come, the reverb comes up. And when the vocal does come, the reverb drops down. Now this is an interesting thing to do, right? So there are so many creative ways by which you can use reverb. But it needs to sound well in context with your song. You can't use all the techniques into your song and you need to use techniques that suit your song, right? So your reference song is a very good guide to look into all these aspects. Also look for the overall volume balance. Maybe the way your percussion sounds is way too loud. So you need to probably lower those. I'm always stressing about reference songs. So that doesn't mean use the same chords as a reference song. Bring in the same singer for your song. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying just have a guide so that your song is also going to sound professional eventually. Otherwise, it's just going to be like you're just trying to make it good on your own without having a professional guidance. That's how you need to strategically choose a reference song. So with these ideas, I hope you can choose the right reference songs for your tracks, for your projects, for your clients' projects as well. One more thing that I want to tell is, whenever I get a song from a client, I ask them for a reference song. Maybe they have a song in their mind and they want their song to sound like the song that's popular out there. So you can probably do that for your clients as well. Maybe they have some idea and that might actually speed up your workflow, because they keep telling, I want this to sound like this and that, and they're probably giving you some ideas from a song that's already out there, but you're not using that song, you're using something else as a reference song. So sometimes it's good to ask your client if they have a song in their mind as well. So I hope everything in this video was useful. And like I said, if you want to join my classes, there's a link in my description. You can either email me or fill the form in my website and I will reach out to you. Thank you so much for watching. Never stop learning, keep making music, and I'll see you guys in another video.